Zweig Group invites all AEC industry leaders to the 2024 AEC Small Business and Entrepreneurship Forum, the premier event for small firms in the AEC sector. Experience innovative strategies and insights on May 21st, crafted by Zweig Group's industry experts. Engage in keynotes and interactive sessions focused on recruitment, retention, and business growth. Join Zweig Group for this unique networking opportunity and take your business to new heights. Secure your spot today and be part of the AEC industry's future. Visit zweiggroup.com for more information. The Zweig Group team looks forward to welcoming you.
Welcome to the Zweig Letter Podcasts, putting architectural, engineering, planning, and environmental consulting guru Mark Zweig and his team of experts straight talk in your ear. Mark has more than 30 years of experience helping AEP and environmental firms thrive. And these podcasts deliver his invaluable management, industry, client, and HR advice directly to you, free of charge. The Zweig Letter and the Zweig Letter Podcasts let you develop professionally, wherever you are.
Hey everyone, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Zweig Letter Podcast. Today, we are doing our Life Hacker series, but it's actually even better. It is a company hacker series. We just came up with that name recently, and the idea behind these series, first of all, was just that my co-host, Sanjay, and I came up with the idea of just coming up with some different ways to help you do better at your job, but also just help you do better at you. Today is something specifically about your company, and this is a way for you to get the most out of the technology that's available to take your design or construction firm to the next level, which is certainly something we want to help you be able to do. And we think that some of the information that we're going to share on this episode and on future episodes will be instrumental, and if nothing else, giving you some ideas and sparking some thought that will start to kind of take your thinking from a branding and marketing perspective, and in some other ways grow and move your company in a very positive direction. Some of you are already out there and doing a lot of what we're talking about, but there are a lot of you out there that are not. And so this episode is for you. And we want to make the most of it. We want to certainly share as much information as we can with you. And this is going to be kind of the start of a longer series of episodes that we will have interspersed with some of our fantastic interviews and other information that we'll have out there, and something that we can do. And because, again, our goal is to bring you some of the best and brightest minds that the AEC industry has to offer. And again, that's both externally from all the brilliant people out there doing great things in the design and construction space, as well as internally. And so I'm pleased to welcome back our own Sanjay Jenkins. Sanjay is part of the marketing apparatus here at Zweig Group. He is pretty much a man about town. He's doing a lot. He's also an entrepreneur in his own right. And so, Sanjay, it's great to have you back on the podcast. Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Life/Company Hacker series. And we certainly are looking forward to talking about some really cool things today.
Absolutely.
So why don't we go ahead and get started and, kind of really jump into this, because I know you have a lot that you want to share. But one of the things that we talked about was, just this idea that firms in the design space just don't market properly, or rather the way that they market is a bit long in the tooth, if you will. Yeah. And so I know that you've come up with some ideas and some ways that we can kind of take advantage of some of the tools that are at our disposal. Thinking specifically of like Facebook and Twitter, our website, our own company website, whether it's Zweig's company website or anybody that's listening to this, their company website, ways to kind of improve the process and take advantage of all the little bells and whistles and technology that's out there that's available. I mean, I know you feel like this, and I know I do, is that things are changing rapidly.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's really incumbent upon all of us to kind of stay ahead of the curve, and especially those of you that are in the design industry or construction space. And I mean, you guys are designing and building some of the greatest buildings and structures and roads and bridges and I mean skyscrapers that that anyone could imagine, and certainly, if nothing else, from a branding and marketing perspective, you want to keep up with the changes, just like you do on the construction or design side of things. So, Sanjay, where do you want to start today?
Well, let's start with. I want to start talking about Facebook. Everyone's talking about Facebook. So it's the number one social media platform out there.
2 billion users. Just the other day it was announced. So I think that's pretty exciting that over 2 billion people are using it. I mean, I remember when it started. Some of you have probably seen the movie Social Network, and just everything that Facebook is about. And so certainly, I'm sure the Winklevoss twins are crying, although I don't feel too bad for them because they got paid. But yeah, the just the idea of what Zuckerberg has put together, the speed at which it has progressed is absolutely astounding, and the way that it impacts everyone's daily life now is just amazing. And when you think of them, you think of companies like Amazon and others. I mean, these guys are really making strides and inroads into the very fabric of our existence on a daily. I mean, like it's almost like we use Amazon, we use Facebook as a verb now to describe things that we're doing, you know. And so I think it's you can run, you can hide, but it's going to be there. And I may not agree with all of the information sharing that goes on. I mean, certainly Facebook can be a bully pulpit at times. But from a business perspective, let's really look at it from that perspective and how individuals and firms can really benefit from utilizing and leveraging the reach that Facebook has.
So something to understand just off the bat is that a few years ago, when you're searching up a company or you're just trying to find something, you'll try to find their website first.
Right.
And now what a lot of people are doing, and this is something that I just sort of picked up on, in my own habits and just being around my friends, just to see like how they verify information. They'll check the Facebook of the company before they'll check the website.
Right.
And so there's a lot of judgment being made very quickly on, well, how often are they posting? Are they posting good content? Is it like, do they have, the basics? Like, do they have a profile picture? Or is it just has any care been put into managing this page? Because, I mean, the honest fact is that a lot of times Facebook is going to be your first sort of interaction online with prospective employees, prospective clients, whoever it might be. So I would say when you set up a Facebook page, you set up a business page, make sure you just do the basics. You've got a profile picture on there. You've got a good header image. It could be, maybe it's your logo. You don't have anything specific, but you could put a photo of your team up there. Right now on our own Zwei Group page, we have a little an advertisement for Hot Firm, our award.
So you change that stuff out on a regular basis,
we do.
Right?
Absolutely.
And the other thing I think I would add to that, certainly especially with just some of the residual artwork and logos and things that you use on your Facebook or Twitter or any account for that matter.
Right.
All of these social media sites have standards for the size of these items. So you need to have someone, don't just repurpose something for Facebook, for Twitter, and so on and so forth. It can be the same image, but make sure that it's the right specifications, the right length and width and height that Facebook would require, which might be different than what it looks like on the main page of your Twitter account. So I think it's important for you to make sure that you're dealing with somebody, and probably most of the people that are listening to this podcast have somebody in-house that can do some basic design work as far as that's concerned. If anybody ever needs help in that area, they can certainly reach out to us, and we can point you in the right direction. Sometimes it's as simple as having somebody create kind of like a map, if you will, of different branded residual items, material for use on the different social media sites, so it all looks good. Right. I mean, you got to remember.
Consistency is key.
Exactly. Consistency is key. So So go ahead, carry on.
So just the basics. Have your company information, your address, your phone number, any sort of contact email you can have. something that we started doing recently, we're testing out is Facebook Messenger bots.
Yeah.
And so these are sort of automated responders, and not just responders. They do a lot more. They can have almost full-blown conversations with people. So Facebook gives you a certain rating on how quickly you respond to your messages. So if someone messages your company's profile on Facebook, it'll show your responsive rating. Like, you can be 100% responsive in X amount of hours. The more responsive you are, I think the better like people will react to that, and they'll notice that you actually care about your presence on this platform, and you care about engaging with them. And I think engagement's going to be the buzzword when we talk about social media. Facebook, one of the most important, and I think it's an underutilized in design space, is the ad platform. You can target very, very specifically on Facebook's ad platform. For example, if you want to target 47-year-old male golfers in 3 specific neighborhoods in your city who make $250,000 or more a year, you can do that.
Right.
And if you want to target project managers or people who work in a specific discipline in a given market, you can do that. And people in the design industry, just advertisement in general. I know we've had this conversation about marketing and need to do more of it. And with advertisements, there's a lot of there's even more hesitation because now you have money, even more money at stake. Yeah. But if you've got a project that you want to advertise, or if you just want to build some brand awareness, or you have a job that you've posted and you want to get it out to the right people, it's very important that you start playing around with the Facebook ad system, because you can. The resolution that you can get with Facebook is kind of scary. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure where they get the income information, but it might be just census data that they pull. Yeah, but it's like they've got it all. Yeah, they really do. If you have it's you want to look at structural engineers that also really love dogs and contribute to rescue shelters, you can find those people, right? Exactly. So
it's the craziest thing. Yeah. It's finding the purple unicorn, the purple cow. Facebook gives you that ability to get real granular with your marketing. Yeah. And that's what I think everybody needs to understand. I think the other big point to kind of share with regard to Facebook is simply that you can test. Just test a market, test a small area. That you don't have. Nobody's telling you to go out and market your firm to the whole country. Yeah, you can market to just your county, to your zip code. Yeah. You can get seriously granular. Absolutely. And I think the thing also to remember, and I know that we're going to talk more about this, but there is a B2B component to this and a B2C component, right? Yes. So when you think of a lot of times for design firms, they're going to or marketing themselves not just to individuals in some instances, but also to entities. So you really you can leverage Facebook in that way to do that. Yeah. Because those people that are part of those entities that are tracked in that way will see information that you have to share. Plus, just with the predictive analytics of the way that the posts show up, when you start searching for specific things in Google and elsewhere, and your cache has all that information in there, it's just rich information and data that Facebook then in turn uses to point certain things in your direction. Correct. Now, what they might be pointing in your direction or in the direction of a potential client of yours is your information. And that's why it's important for you to figure out a way to be intentional about sharing that data, about putting some ads together, whether video or static post or otherwise, to let people know, hey, this is what we're doing. We're over here, XYZ architecture firm, ABC engineering. This is what we do. This is how we do it. And this is why our clients are so satisfied. Yeah. And really kind of speak to where people are as far as that's concerned.
Yeah, absolutely. I just sort of segue a little bit. I'm glad you brought up video, because Facebook is the most powerful platform for video right now. YouTube is still probably I honestly think Facebook overtook YouTube in terms of the power of video. And
we're gonna talk later about another platform, Snapchat, which actually has more video views than even YouTube.
Absolutely.
Which is it's the number is something ridiculous. It's something
the frequency on Snapchat
it's crazy for videos. Nuts. So,
but if you're doing cool projects, go buy a drone. Get a DJI Mavic Pro. I wish we were getting some sort of bonus for mentioning that. It's just the best product out there, in my opinion. I've been using DJI products for a hot minute now. Go get some drone footage, put some music on that, and boom, you've got a video that's super shareable that the people who worked on the project will share to their personal profiles that people will be interested in seeing, because that's not just everyday footage. That's not just someone walking around with the camera. That's really cool. And then you get to showcase your project as well.
Right.
You get some residual benefits from that. I would suggest, if you're starting out, if you've never really done a whole lot of work on Facebook, keep it really simple. Just post twice a week.
Okay.
Do a Monday, Friday thing. Maybe you've got something going on over the weekend. You put that on Monday, and then do a little Friday recap. But if you got blog posts from your website, those go up there. If were featured in the news, share those articles. And distributing content that already exists elsewhere. Maybe there's like a really great, think piece on structural engineering that a thought leader put out. Share that and add a comment. When you share it, you can actually sort of add your own little take on everything and say, you know what, I agree with this person to this extent, but then we have our own opinion, or you can go every which way. But that helps you not have to worry about making content yourself.
Right.
Because I think people, when they approach social media, and this is not just the AAC industry, this is just in general, they get worried about having to constantly be making content.
It's tough.
It is. It really is.
It's like after a while you have content fatigue because you're like, oh my God, I got to think of something new to write. But the idea too, if I can jump in, is just repurposing some things that you've already written about.
Absolutely.
And so say you've written some, say your firm, you've written some articles for other organizations or magazines or newspapers or whatever, you can take some of that and repurpose it for the purposes of your Facebook or other social media page.
Absolutely.
And figure out a way to use it. I do that all the time. I write articles for the Zweig Letter. Some of those articles I post on LinkedIn. I repurpose some of those articles for medium.com. And it allows me, there's like concentric circles. They keep getting bigger and bigger, right?
Yeah.
And so each pond has a bigger audience. So the Zweig Letter website, we have a certain size audience. Then I go to LinkedIn. That's obviously a bigger pool. Then I go to Medium, and that's an even larger pool. I mean, everybody around the world is reading Medium.
Yeah.
And they a lot of it is it's keyword rich information that people can find. They may have something that they're looking for, and they will run upon that and see this and kind of go from there. So really would encourage you to participate in it and think of it that way, and don't be so afraid that, I'm not going to get my work done. I can't continue to meet the demands that my clients have because I'm out here trying to create more material. It's not that way. And when all is said and done, if you really, really need help in this area in terms of content creation, there are some really inexpensive ways to hire really good writers that are in your local area that can write about some of the things that you're doing. You need to also provide articles to your local newspapers about what you're doing and about why your process is different, or how you design buildings, or how you design bridges, or what goes into bridge design, or what goes into building design. Stuff that you think, nobody's interested in that. You have no idea what people are interested in. Plus, it gives you a larger digital footprint the more that you're able to share your knowledge base with others.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's what it's all about.
And when people search for you, they're going to see 14 different things that you've been featured in, or where you're talking about a certain topic, and
all of a sudden you get like instant social credibility, social digital online credibility. So
that's part of the relationship building process. People need to trust you.
Yeah.
People need to trust your brand, and that's, I mean, if you constantly putting out stuff that shows that you're an expert in your niche, I mean, you're going to win. You're going to get those relationships.
Absolutely.
So just a basic housekeeping thing for Facebook before we move on. Make sure you invite all of your employees to like your Facebook page. They're not all necessarily going to do it,
Right.
but
Would encourage them to.
it would be, yeah. I would hope you would at least ask, and it helps. You know, you start building out those circles. You know, friends of friends start seeing content that's put out, and they're like, oh, okay, this is actually kind of relevant to me, or maybe, you know, your firm designed or built a space that it's a community space, and now someone can actually see the process that went into building it. So I'd like to move on to Twitter now, if that's okay.
Twitter. What is Twitter? I've never heard of that.
What is, you know, they're quite a, yeah.
You know, it's so funny. I was listening to something that Gary Vaynerchuk was talking about the other day, and it's Gary said Twitter is actually still the most purest form of communication available from a social media perspective. It really is legitimate communication at 140 characters. I mean, you've got to be succinct in your message. You got to get it out there. You got to figure out a way to tweet. I know it's amazing how much Twitter has become part of our society, but nowadays, even in the political realm and in the news cycle, people are responding to accusations or anything else on Twitter and using that as kind of like their ability to respond. I think something that Donald Trump Jr. just responded to for some deal that he's dealing with. And I mean, you know, again, this is not a political show, so I'm just commenting simply on, you know, how people use Twitter. And his response was to respond back with a complete, you know, I guess excerpt of the situation as he saw it, but he did it on Twitter.
Right.
That's how he exchanged the information, and everybody's reading it.
Yeah.
So if you want to find out anything about what he's saying, you go right there and you read it. It's the same thing, whether you are the founder of a company, whether you're just starting out and you've got some ideas about what you're learning in terms of being a great engineer or great architect or landscape architect or construction manager, whatever your bailiwick is, you have a platform with Twitter to get that information out there and to create a dialogue.
Yeah.
Right. I think the other thing that we need to remember is that social media is about being social. It's not putting up a couple of posts and then walking away and then it's crickets. Because that's what most people do in the design industry space is when they create these social media accounts, they create them and then they're like, okay, I got it. It's up. What do I do next? You know, it's like, well, don't just sit idly by and just hope that people are going to interact with you. You have to be social, you know? And so, but go ahead and let's talk a little bit about Twitter.
And again, you know, housekeeping, as with Facebook, make sure you have a profile picture, make sure you have a good header image. And this is a good place to have like a biography, or just like a little synopsis of what your firm does, what your specialties are.
And a link to the firm.
And a link to get your website up there. You know, you want to constantly be linking to your website. That helps with search engine optimization, and we'll talk about that when we touch on the website. But with Twitter, two things: be active, tweet at least once a day. Yeah. And I know for some people that seems really daunting. Like, I mean, once a day. I mean, every day I need to be on Twitter every day. Yeah, it's like, actually, you know, you do. Your firm, you know, is probably doing a lot of cool stuff. Right. You just have to talk about it a little bit. You know? Yeah. And
it's not just work related stuff in the sense that here's how you extend your brand. And I'll let you continue. The bottom line is that yes, you're going to talk about all the projects that you're working on, what you're doing. Certainly, if it's not compromised by some confidentiality agreement that you've signed. Right. But you're also going to just talk about just the everyday stuff. Like, hey, this is what we're doing. We're having a biking retreat this week, or hey, we're raising money for this, or we're raising money for that, and a bunch of us are going skiing, or a bunch of us are going on a whitewater rapids tour, or a bunch of us are going fishing, or to the Cubs game, or insert your favorite sport team here, right? The bottom line is you can talk about that, and people that see that might be future employees, people that want to work at your firm, and they want to see that you're doing some fun things.
That you're more than just the work that you do.
Exactly.
I mean, we're well-rounded human beings.
Yeah.
So that's it. Just and stuff like that. And you can do that with you should do that with Facebook as well. Just adds depth to your brand and some humanity to it, and that's really important. I know. So I've been doing some of the Twitter work for our own stuff, and last week.
You've been busy.
Yeah.
Busy.
For the Throwback Thursday, I put up a drone video that we took of the office.
I saw that.
Yeah.
I remembered when that video was done, and I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." And that's a lot of times that was a while back. I mean, that video
was
was
like January, February. I believe,
yeah. So it's good. It's good stuff, though. And I saw that. I was like, "Oh, yeah, that's right." And that's what it does. The building does look cool from that perspective. So
yeah, and again, so that's something that was content that we created back in January, February. That's months ago that we were able to repurpose for, this very common theme across social media, this Throwback Thursday. And this is like each day of the week has sort of like a theme or a few themes. I know this morning we did today's a Tuesday. We're filming this or recording this is it Tuesday?
Yeah.
Okay.
It is.
I had to
check.
I
know, all day.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
The days just blend together. It's just hustle all the time.
That's
so,
it. That's it.
But if you're confused about what you want to post, you can use those sort of themes to sort of give you some guidance. So Thursday is a Throwback Thursday. Well, talk about a project you did a year ago.
Or years ago, for that matter. Yeah. I mean, highlight stuff that maybe you don't even have digital images for, stuff that you did a while back. If you're a legacy firm, we have clients that have been around for 30, 40, or 50 years. You could do like a this week in, and you go back in time and you highlight something that you guys worked on.
Yeah.
And people were like, oh, yeah, I remember that. And we have a ton of clients that have worked on some major projects in their respective communities.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I know it's 20 years ago, but still,
you did that.
Yeah. Mention it, talk about it. So, I really want to encourage those out there that are listening to figure out ways to accentuate those positives, because I think it's really important to do that. And it gives you additional things to share.
Yeah.
So
you can always use, trends. You'll see on the left-hand column if you're using the desktop version, or really, just on the search function, I guess, on the mobile, what the latest trends are on Twitter.
Yeah.
And you can piggyback on certain things.
Okay.
A lot of times they're political, if you've been keeping up with Twitter recently.
Yep.
But there's a lot of stuff that's going on that's not.
Yeah.
And, just remix certain things and find a way to make it your own. And this is like a great time for creativity as well. So like if you don't want to do what everybody else does for like a weekly, like a daily theme, maybe you're a structural firm, structural Saturdays, where you just put out like fun tidbits about being a structural engineer.
Right.
And something that I want to talk about just in general about social media is that don't get caught up in this sort of hype or the need to feel like you need thousands or millions of followers. You don't need too many followers. It's like, would you rather have 10 people love you or 1,000 people just kind of like you? And that's really what's going on here. Is like you want to make sure that you're building a community that's relevant, that's constantly engaging with you, and that's really just sort of like voraciously like consuming your content,
right?
And then distributing it across their own channels. There's Kevin Kelly is one of the co-founders of Wired magazine,
yep.
And one of the former editors. He has this essay called 1,000 True Fans. Tim Ferriss mentions this in Tools of Titans and on his blog.
So does Seth Godin. He talks about a tribe of 1,000.
Correct.
Brian Kelly from Brian Kelly talks about it. He started a company, and the name is just escaping me right now, but and that's a shame. But they all of these internet folks have talked about different ways to market, and Brian's a marketer just like Seth is, and others talked about the importance of all you need is 1,000.
Yeah.
1,000 people is a good number.
It is.
From an entrepreneurial perspective, if you're just an entrepreneur and you're out there, even if you're just like a single solo architect or solo engineer, you could build a following of 1,000 people.
You can,
and you'd pretty much have work for life.
Yeah.
Done. End of story.
Yeah, and that's incredibly powerful. That should be a liberating thing. Don't get caught up in the hype and needing, thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of followers. Just try to make sure that you're putting out content that's relevant to the niche that you serve and that complements the expertise that you have in the design industry. Social media, being social. You talked about this just a little bit ago. You want to engage with people. You want to have conversations, create that dialogue. And one of the easiest ways to do this is using Twitter search. So say you're a architect in, it doesn't really matter. You're an architect.
Right.
You just designed this big project in your community. You want to know what people are saying about it.
Right.
Well, you can search for maybe the name of the project or whatever it goes by, and you can actually see what people are saying on Twitter, and you can respond to them directly. And you should have conversations like someone says, "Oh, I hate the way the lighting is in this building," and then maybe you can go in and say, "Well, actually, we designed it for these reasons."
Yeah.
Or maybe someone will say, "I love how the space is sort of laid out and how open it is," and you can say, "Hey, thank you for that."
Yeah.
And those little interactions, they may not seem like much in the moment. They may not seem like it's going to result in anything, and a lot of times it doesn't. But you never know what that one interaction can lead to.
Yeah.
This is, and from the B2C world, there's a really good Gary Vaynerchuk story where when he was running Wine Library, his wine store, he sold a bottle of wine, pretty cheap wine, to a gentleman in Minnesota, and they his social media team looked up this person and found out he was a big Gronk fan, and sent him a Gronk jersey. Well, next week, or actually not even next week, it was 3-4 weeks later, they got a $6,000 order from Texas.
Yeah.
And they were like, okay, that's fine. But there was this little note. It was like, hey, my buddy in Minnesota, ordered, one bottle of wine and got this jersey.
Yeah.
And that's why I wanted to order from you guys rather than, any other wine distributor in the area. And there was I think the funny note was P.S. I it's like a musician trying to get those concert tickets or something. But
Yeah.
those little interactions, those happen in every industry, and they can very well happen in the AAC industry. You never know when a potential employer, this is something I was thinking about. There are a lot of engineering students, and I've just noticed this from our own Twitter. We've got a lot of engineering students following us.
Right.
They ask questions. They have homework to do. They ask questions. And I'm sure that a lot of those questions are questions that you had when you were going through school as an engineer or an architect. Take the time to search for those questions and answer them. Give them some value, and just leave it at that.
Yeah.
You never know. Maybe when they graduate, you're the first firm that they want to come work for.
You're the first door that they knock on
Yeah.
because you were just kind enough to help them out with
Absolutely.
some, electrical engineering question or a civil engineering test or whatever. So, you bring up some amazing points. I think that it's just the idea that the conversations are there to be had. And even if it's just with one individual, you just don't know where that will lead.
Right.
You can't make assumptions at all. Too often we are blinded by this idea that, we have to reach more, we have to reach more, we have to reach more. It's not always about that. You can have success with the one, and the one turns into two, and two turns into four. And, you grow that way. And so it's certainly from an organic growth perspective, being really intentional with social media is huge because it can have a tremendous impact.
Absolutely.
Why don't you talk a little bit about, because we could go on and on about this, and we're going to unpack this even more as in the future. But why don't you just talk just a little bit before we move on to our next topic? Why don't you talk a little bit about the importance of the hashtag? Okay,
yeah. So hashtag, these are ways to sort of index the things that you say, and it's one thing to just go to Twitter search to see people using words. You can actually you get a lot more exposure, a lot more visibility, and a lot more engagement when you actually use the hashtag.
Yeah.
And so a hashtag is sort of like this little way to, I try not to use the word in the definition, a way to tag a keyword.
Right.
To sort of like see what other conversations are coming out from that.
And keywords are important.
Keywords are very important,
Yeah.
not just in social media. I mean, this is very important in the way you run your website and the content that you put up on your website as well.
And you might want to add too that everybody listening to this has a core set of keywords that they should be following, that they should be indexing, that they should be adding to just about anything that they put out.
Right.
Because there's nothing new under the sun. And when anybody searches for anything, whether long tail word searches or short tail searches, and that just describes the length of the question that you ask the Google search engine. The bottom line is keywords matter.
Keywords matter.
And they come up over and over again.
Yeah.
Know what your core keywords are and build upon that.
Google's got, if you're struggling to figure out what your keywords are, what they can be, what they should be, Google's got some tools to try to help you find that through their AdSense program, if I'm not mistaken. Again, you can Google to find that, and we'll have that in the show notes as well. But hashtags are important. I wouldn't. So if this were Instagram, I would say make sure you use 11 plus hashtags. It's not feasible. It's not good to do to sort of use too many hashtags on Twitter, especially given that you have a very limited number of characters.
Right.
But like have 1, 2, 3 good hashtags. Maybe like for when we're talking about marketing, hashtag marketing.
Yeah.
If we're talking about structural engineering, hashtag structural or structural engineering or engineers. And it'll just help people get to your content a lot faster, and it'll really like just sort of put you over the top in terms of exposure and sort of organic reach.
Yeah.
And that's important. That's, there are a lot of places where you can go and buy followers, and it's just artificial, just inflating the numbers. You just don't do that. I mean, you can build a very meaningful following organically. It's just going to take some time and some grit. And one of the techniques is to use appropriate hashtags whenever you can.
Yeah. They're indexable, they're searchable, they make a big difference at the end of the day.
Correct.
I mean, having those hashtags and researching them, making sure that you're using the right ones. So.
So we talked about having conversations with people. We talked about Twitter search and hashtags. I think now is a good time to sort of segue into the website.
Yeah.
So,
and we've seen them all.
We have. So we do, for our Marketing Excellence Awards for Hot Firm, one of the categories is websites.
Right.
So we get to see the full spectrum of websites, and then just from working with clients and just having the pulse on the industry, just knowing what's out there. A lot of firm websites are bad. They're not mobile responsive, which means that they're not optimized for your phone or tablet screen. And the design language and the functionality, they're from 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, sometimes even older, years ago. And it's very important. It may seem like you're sort of keeping up with the Joneses, but it's like it's important to keep up with web design trends, because they exist, because that's what people are receptive to. And the Marketing Excellence Awards, the top 3 winners for the website category, we actually did write-ups on their website and sort of what the strengths were.
Yeah.
And you can check that out on our blog. So we had EAPC, we had Big Red Dog, and we had Davis Construction.
Okay.
And they all had really great dynamic websites. There were videos, there was drone footage, there was image heavy. That's a big one. So my recommendation for the website is make sure it's up to date with modern design language. If you don't know what that is, you can just type in 2017 web design trends, and you'll get thousands upon thousands of different things, different avenues, different techniques that you can deploy on your own website. we're not asking you to be like everybody else and just do the same thing. I think there are a lot of like fundamentals that you can deploy on your own stuff, but feel free and I encourage you to if you can take a functional piece and sort of tweak it and make it do something else that's fits your brand's image a little better, by all means do that. You want to separate yourself as well, but using modern design trends, sort of like just speaking the language of the day.
Yeah.
I think that's very important. Mobile responsiveness, everybody's like
Articulate that though, so people understand what mobile responsiveness
Okay, so mobile
means.
responsiveness. So whenever you load a web page on a desktop, you've got sort of the big screen. The way websites are displayed on phones and tablets is that they take that big website and they actually just sort of scale it down.
Right.
And there's a lot of background processes that go with that. And it's to optimize that user experience when you're using. So you can't be scrolling around. So if you've got this big wide space on your desktop, you don't have that kind of real estate on your phone.
Right.
And you don't want to be making people scroll around to find the content that matters to them, because people have short attention spans. You've got probably 3 seconds before you're going to lose someone. And another thing is is load time. So part of mobile responsiveness is try to make load times as quick as possible, because if people are stuck having to have some very intensive animation load, they're going to leave. They don't care enough at that point, unless they just really, really want to see what you're about. So it's like for first impressions, it's very important to have a website that displays effectively across desktops, laptops, iPads, smartphones, whatever the case may be. And that's largely going to come to, if you do your web design in-house, whoever's managing that, they need to put the effort into making sure that your website looks good and is very easy to use on a smartphone, as just as well as it is on a desktop computer. Do you think that covered mobile responsiveness all right? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I think it does. I think the key thing now is that a lot of people, I mean, if you look at, I always talk about this whenever I do a seminar or anything. I mean, I do everything on my phone now.
Right.
I mean, I even work on my phone.
Correct.
And we were just talking about before we started the podcast. I'm about to get the new iPad 10.5,
the Pro.
Yeah. And 4K screen. Mm-hmm. It pretty much with the iOS 11, it's pretty much going to do things that you're familiar with doing on your normal desktop. And,
right.
And it's a tablet.
Mm-hmm.
It's that simple, and it's a powerful tablet at that. But I'll be able to do just about everything. But I want my experience on that to be comparable to what I experience on my iPhone.
Yeah.
And I want it to be similar to what I experience on my computer.
Yeah.
A lot of our clients and others don't have what we would call mobile responsive material and have not created mobile responsive sites, so that if I were to go on to some of their sites, it might look okay on the desktop, but by the time I get to the iPhone, I'm like you said, I'm looking away. I'm like, this is hideous. I can't look.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying that everybody nowadays really needs to consider who your user audience is, how they're viewing your website, and create, because in the next few years, it's all going to be about mobile.
Yeah.
All going to be about mobile. And I forget what the actual number is of every person that has a smartphone, but it's an astounding number. And suffice it to say is that's where you want to have your real estate looking the best.
Yeah.
And if you don't, you need to work on that.
Yeah.
And each one of you can easily go. There are a couple of websites that allow you to see how your website optimizes for each size screen.
Yeah.
And a good web developer can help you with this too.
Right.
I mean, and certainly we want to encourage you, if you don't, or your site is a little long in the tooth and you haven't had anybody look at it for a while, probably need to have someone take a good look at it.
Yeah.
Whether you've got a WordPress site or something else, or something that you got off the shelf, or Wix.com, I don't care what it is. Square Pages, I mean, it doesn't matter. There are so many different variations of websites. But in this day and age, there's no excuse for having a very poor site. But we see them all the time. I mean, I just looked up a firm this morning because we had to adjust something for one of their subscriptions for Civil Plus Structural Engineering magazine, and I was appalled at their website. I mean, it looks something like circa 1995.
Yeah.
I mean, Netscape 1.0.
Oh yeah.
It was really bad. And some of you might go over your head in terms of what I'm referencing, but the bottom line is you want your stuff to look good, and you want it to be a representation of who you are as an organization. So we encourage you, don't cut corners in this area because you don't think people are looking. More things are happening in a virtual world than you realize. Yeah. And from a marketing perspective and a branding perspective, you want to look your best in every way, shape, or form.
I think this is something that I had written down. This is like, you should think of your website as your office on the internet. Like, if you have a really nice office building, there's a really great ambiance, really great experience. People want to be there. Yeah. Replicate that feeling with your website, because that's, again, like, going to be one of the first major interaction points between you and a potential client, you and a potential employee. Really just anybody. Put some care into it, put some effort into it, and as always, we're here to help. We're here to audit websites. If you need some sort of design help, I mean, that's something that we do. We will look at that for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we talked about design trends, mobile responsiveness. Make sure, if you've got a blog, and if you don't, you should. Yeah. Make sure you're posting regularly. Yeah. There's I've seen latest news from XYZ company, and their last post was
2013. Yeah.
No, you need to be posting. If you're doing work in the industry, you have things to talk about. Things are changing constantly, even just from a regulation standpoint. Yeah. That in itself is something to talk about. Make sure you're having those conversations. We've got some clients that do a really good job of updating their blog, and then repurposing that content for other social media platforms. Right. So all of this flows into each other. But this part of this is like search engine optimization. So when someone types in your firm's name into Google or Bing, let's be real, everybody's using Google. That's not true, but I'm a Google person. Right. When they do that, you don't want to be on the 14th page. Right. You want to be on the first page. If you are in a very specific niche, like you want to, that's like your opportunity to try to index even further. To be on the first page. Maybe you want to be the very top result when someone types in, some variation of landscape architecture. That's very unique and doesn't happen a lot. And blog posts, thought leadership. This again goes back to building trust, building credibility, showing off your expertise in your niche. That's like a great vehicle for you to flex what you've got. And it really needs. You should be putting something out at least once a week. Yeah. At the least once a week. Yeah. And then once you put it out on your website, you can put it out on your Twitter, your Facebook page, and wherever else you want to put it out. Maybe it's like almost like a press release. Hit up your local news station and see if they want to do a story about it. Yeah. You'd be surprised at how willing a lot of places and news stations will be in that respect. We've gotten, when I was running my pet subscription box business, we got a lot of free press just from asking, just from saying, hey, we're doing this, we're it's moderately interesting, especially if you sort of frame it correctly.
Press releases are one of the least utilized tools in your arsenal. Mm-hmm. And we have sometimes we've been a victim of our success with press releases to the point where we have not used them at times and then gone back to use them here at Zweig, I'm speaking of, and then had to be reminded that, oh my God, I forgot how good press releases are.
Absolutely.
I mean, you should literally be sending out a press release for everything.
Yeah.
You hire a new person, you want to put a press release out. You win a new project, you want to put a press release out. You complete a project, you should put a press release out. You discover something or figure out a way to design something more efficiently, and you've proven it. You should put a press release out.
That stuff like that that'll explode. That's
huge. Yeah.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
And you got to do it regularly.
Yeah.
And you'll be surprised. I mean, I think especially with writing in general, it's like the more you do it, the easier it'll become, and the more you do it, the more often you'll start to see patterns. Maybe you'll have like a group of employees that they'll like go back and forth on discussing a topic, and then all of a sudden they've talked about it enough to where they sort of put some puzzle pieces together, and there you have your breakthrough.
Right.
So make sure you got the blog posts, and then search engine optimization, which we talked about. We're going back to the keywords, and this is really on the back end of your website. This is in the metadata.
Or this is, as we like to call it, the sausage making.
This is the sausage making. This is the part that no one usually sees
or talks about.
Or talks
matter.
about. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And as with web design trends, there are a lot of protocols that you need to keep up with on search engine optimization. All the search engines, notably Google, that's the one most people use. And if you don't use Google, it's fine. I mean, that's just the honest fact. It's where the attention is right now. Google is the verb.
It is. It is, without a doubt. So, and I think the thing about it, because we could go on and on and on about this, is that, and we're going to talk more about utilizing these key tools to kind of advance your cause from an advertising and marketing and branding perspective. But, you've got to figure out where you are currently. And a lot of if your website is underrepresenting your brand. And some of if your website is meeting the mark. And I would say statistically that probably more are not than are meeting the mark from a marketing and branding perspective.
Right.
So I just want to encourage you guys to really be thinking long and hard about how you can represent and how you should be representing your organization. And if things are just a little long in the tooth, figure out a way to correct it. It's really, they're not huge fixes.
No.
And we're not talking about spending gobs of money, and you don't need to go out and hire some consultant and pay them $50,000 for a website reboot that could be done for $2,500. Or less.
Yeah.
I mean, it shouldn't cost that much. And certainly if you're having questions about that, you can always reach out to us. We'd be more than happy to at least, if nothing else, talk with you, give you some pointers, point out some tips. Between Sanjay and myself and others on this team here at Zweig Group, we've got years of experience in this area, some more than others, but still enough to point you in the right direction before you start opening up your wallet and spending a lot of money.
Yeah.
And maybe we can help you. I mean, who knows? I mean, the bottom line is we want you to kind of do what's right for your organization as a whole. And if we can kind of help you fill in the blanks, that's what we're here to do. So
before we go, I do want to mention two tools that will make all of this stuff a lot easier. So we talked about designing stuff and
when we say this stuff, we're talking about
content.
Facebook, Twitter,
Correct.
website.
Just like images, various graphic posts. Canva.com. That's Canva.com. That is a tool that I use on a daily basis, almost on an hourly basis on some days. And that helps me design posts for Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. If I want a special like header image for my profile, they have all of those formats, those layouts made for you, and then it's drag and drop from there. If you've got your own logo that you want to put in there, just upload it to Canva and drag it over to the design that you're making. That'll speed up your content design process exponentially. This is especially useful for firms that don't necessarily have like a designer in-house. Don't spend a ton of money having someone make this stuff for you, because a lot of times you can do it yourself. and you don't necessarily need to have like a great design eye. That's the beauty of Canva, is it helps you out. It really walks you through how to do everything. I'm not a designer by any means. I have my own sort of taste. I'll tell you what I think looks good and what doesn't. And, you have people who can give you feedback. That's a really good tool to deploy. And then in terms of, posting things, whether it be on a daily basis or on a weekly basis, I understand that you're busy, especially if you're operating at a 90%, utilization. You really don't have a whole lot of time to give to social media.
Right.
So utilize tools like Hootsuite or HubSpot if you want to go even bigger. We one of the services that we use is Pardot, which is a Salesforce product.
There are other products too out there, so do your research as far as that's concerned. I mean, we've run across some others that are pretty robust and kind of do what you need to do, especially when it comes to email marketing.
Yeah.
And, tying things in. We've used MailChimp. There are others out there. What's the other
Aweber?
Get Noticed. I think is one, and then what's the HubSpot? You mentioned HubSpot.
So if you want to just start simple, if you're just doing Facebook, Twitter stuff, I mean, I think Hootsuite, it's a free application. There's a paid version that'll help you. You can build posts ahead of time and schedule it out for the week. So say you're sitting down to work on Monday morning, and you don't want to. On Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, you don't want to be posting stuff on social media. You've got other things to do. Take a few hours or an hour or less than that, depending on how much content you're putting out, just to build something and schedule it. And so it's a set it and forget it. I would definitely recommend that you go and check how things are performing. And then when you're having one-on-one interactions, definitely take some time each day to have those. But in terms of just raw content distribution, having an automation tool is incredibly helpful.
Absolutely. And here's my take with that, because again, when we're talking about social media, so I know a lot of you are saying, well, if we automate it, is that taking away the social aspect of it, meaning that there's no real human being behind it, but a computer just spitting out a bunch of random responses? For some firms, you can utilize a combination or a hybrid of the autoresponder that will, if somebody friends your firm on Twitter, you can friend them back and follow them and all that good stuff. But, you really need to look at the way that you really need to look at ways that you can have as much of a natural interaction with people as possible, so that people feel like there's a human being, there's a living, breathing individual behind this, specific social media account. So,
and it's sometimes it's just little things, it's like saying hello or saying congratulations on a project, or someone that maybe a former employee just recently started their own firm.
Right.
Or, I don't know how sometimes dynamics in those situations are kind of hairy, but just little things, just have just those one-on-one interactions. And something that we've done to a good amount of success here at Zwei Group is when we announced our award winners for Hot Firm, Best Firm, and Marketing Excellence. Those firms posted on their social media pages.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, every time that happened, I would go in and respond to them and tell them congratulations and say, hey, good job, or tell them, something specific about their award entry, especially for Marketing Excellence, that I really liked. Or I would ask them, okay, so you were a best firm to work for, you're a hot firm, where do you go from here? Like, what's next? And those little interactions no one expects to have, especially in our industry. But they go a long way. They show that there are people, human beings, who care behind, that online presence. And it's more than just a bunch of robots, controlling everything. I'm sure we'll get to that point where the robots run the world.
Yes, they are going to take over at some point in
Skynet
time. So,
but,
but it's all good. It is all good. So I'm excited to hear, to see what's coming next.
Absolutely.
For sure. So, all right. Well, listen, we're almost running on an hour. This was definitely, definitely a interesting show, and we've talked a lot. Just to kind of tease what we will be talking about next, and we'll spend more time on Facebook and Twitter in the future, and talk about ways to take advantage of all the different things that are happening and the changes, because Facebook's constantly changing.
Correct.
We're going to also talk about Instagram, Pinterest, Snapchat, and some other
and YouTube as well.
YouTube, yeah, some other ways that you can kind of get the word out, and that way you'll be able to kind of take advantage of what we know about. And again, I kind of like some of these meatier podcast episodes. This can actually be 2, right? So it depends on how you listen to us. If you listen to us at one time speed, I usually listen to my podcast at 1.5 times speed. So I can listen to a 60-minute podcast in about 45 minutes. So it kind of works out that way. But the bottom line is, or maybe what 30 minutes. So the bottom line is just take advantage of this information when and where you can. And certainly, as always, if you have questions, feel free to reach out to us here.
I have a question, Randy.
Yes, you do.
I'm going to jump in. Let's say a firm, someone who's listening, wants to do their own podcast. Wants help with the podcast. Is that something that you'd be able to help them out with?
Sanjay, I'm glad you mentioned that, and it is something that we're hearing more and more about. And we can help a firm if they want to get a podcast presence going, and there are a lot of different reasons why firms would want to do that. It's not from a competition perspective, but it is a different way to get your information out there, both from a B2C perspective to a consumer, but also from a B2B perspective. But then also there's some benefits to highlighting what you're doing. If you're in a larger firm and you can't always easily reach out to people, creating a podcast where you can send out a weekly quote unquote announcement. Remember when we were in junior high and we would get those morning announcements from the principal's office, something along those lines, but maybe on a weekly basis or on a quarterly or bi-weekly basis or something along those lines. That would be a way for you to really take advantage of that process and see what can be done. So certainly would encourage those to reach out to us and find out more about ways that we might be able to help you out by getting a podcast off the ground. We've got some basic instruction. We can set you up with a basic system and kind of walk you through the different ways to do it. Or we can just have, a simple conversation over the phone and kind of explore ways that you might want to take advantage of it, and then figure out, what it might cost for you to come up with that, and help you do it without losing your shirt in the process. So nobody wants to lose their shirt in the process. That's not fun.
No.
So I'm glad you did mention that, and certainly we will, we'll take advantage of that. And those of you that want to find out more about ways to develop a podcast for your organization internally, or as well as putting it out there to your audience. Everybody has an audience. We have one. Everybody listening to this has an audience. It might not be big. Doesn't matter. I mean, creating podcasts are really inexpensive, and there are ways for you to put the information out there in a highly consumable way, where all of a sudden people are wanting to hear your voice. And I've always told the story about how I was floored by sitting in a meeting room with a client, and that client saying to me, "Yeah, I was running and listening to you the other day on your podcast." And I'm like, "What?" And it was just kind of surreal, but I was like, that's just kind of how it is. You just never know who's listening. You never know who's listening. And it may be somebody that's going to spend a lot of money with you. It may not. It may be somebody that's going to team up with you. It may be somebody that's going to join your organization, or it just may be someone that really likes what you have to say. Period. So, think about that. So I'm glad you mentioned that. So thanks for that quick plug. And we'll be talking more about any type of podcasting programs that we pull together in the near future. We've got a lot of things happening here at Zwei Group. I did want to mention and encourage you today to get a free subscription of Civil plus Structural Engineer magazine. And to sweeten the pot, we are throwing in a couple of issues of the Zweig Letter too. Just visit tzl.zweigroup.com and leave us your email address. We'll take care of the rest. Everything will be delivered to you electronically. In addition, folks, I've got something brand new for you, hot off the presses. If your firm is looking to hire great talent, please join our mailing list for AEC Workforce. AECworkforce.com was a job site that we had up, and we took it down because we're reforming it and recreating it and rebirthing it into something totally brand new, like you've never seen before. It is going to be the job board for the design and construction industry, bar none. You will never have to go to Monster. You will never have to go to Career Builder. ZipRecruiter will be just a flash in the pan as far as we're concerned. When it comes to finding and hiring the best talent, AECworkforce.com will be the place to be. Just text the word hire faster to 66866, and that will get you on the list where you will learn more about this upcoming job board for the design and construction industry. Remember, text the word hire faster, all one word, to 66866 and let your fingers do the rest. As a reminder, all Zwei Group media programs like this one are available in both podcast and in some instances video format, free for download on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and YouTube, just to name a few places. Sanjay, I think we need to figure out a way to do Facebook Live with this. Actually, I think that's got to be the next thing.
We've got some gear coming, actually.
We've got gear coming. We've got the technology, and it's so simple to do a Facebook Live post. So we're going to work that out. We may not be able to do it in my office, or I'll have to clean up my office before we do that. Although I just read somewhere where a messy desk is a sign of a brilliant mind, right?
We're geniuses.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's what we're going to do. So a link to all this information that we talked about on this site, which is a lot, will be, and as well as Sanjay's contact information and mine will be in our show notes. And we'd love it if you'd go to iTunes or wherever you tune into this show and give us a 5-star rating and share this link with a friend. If you like this, share it. I'm Randy Wilburn.
I'm Sanjay Jenkins.
And you've been listening to Zwei Group Media, part of Zwei Group. Remember, we exist to make you more successful. Bye for now.
Thanks for tuning in to this Zweig Letter podcast. We hope that you can apply the Zweig team's no-holds-barred advice to your daily professional life. For a free 6-week subscription to the Zweig Letter, please visit freetzl.zweiggroup.com to gain more wisdom and inspiration, in addition to information about leadership, finance, HR, and marketing your firm. Subscribe today.